All right, hey, taking a look back today on something related to COVID, something we all got affected by, and our lives got majorly disrupted in 2020, 2021, maybe 2022. And we all seem to just not even be talked about a whole lot these days. Good to look back and say, hey, what worked, what didn't. Clearly, took a look at the vaccine one a while back. Looking today at the social distancing, the physical distancing guidelines, which were asked to put stickers down in businesses, and it was, kind of like masks and everything else was really rigidly told that this is the way and this has to be done. And I questioned that at the time, and there wasn't a whole lot out there. Anyhow, so I'm doing an episode today on the social distancing. Short version is, should we have done it? No, we should not. Is there data to support that it's helpful? Sure. Big picture, yeah. So wrong decision to do that. And I'm going to lay out my reasons why, and hopefully hopefully it makes it a little bit clearer, the situation. It took a lot of time to look into this, a lot of gray area and lots of piece to look at. I'm going to hopefully simplify it down to make it pretty understandable. So anyhow, what did the science say? We heard a lot about following the science. Back around that time, and so, but usually that was used as kind of a club to kind of force people to believe something or another. And I found that follow the science really just means kind of follow the news article or news source I want you to follow. So we really dig into the articles. What I try to do, I try to present a really balanced, just a broad swath and say, hey, really, what's the wise way to move forward and get away from a lot of the politics of stuff. That's not super helpful in my opinion. So anyhow, what I found was studies as far as in favor of it. Obviously, does it matter to have distance between us and people who've got something, flu, COVID, pneumonia, fill in the blank? Yeah, if you're not around anybody, you're probably not going to get it. So that makes sense. The question is it effective to really do? So first study shows in favor of it, shows big review across all of Europe, 149 countries. This is British Medical Journal, BMJ 2020. A big review showed a decreased incidence, not mortality, but incidence of COVID by 13%. This is from 2019, Islam et al. This is the European CDC. So certainly helpful. And this is the distancing. Then second one looking at was a bigger meta-analysis from Lancet 2020 and looking at risk factors. It came down to 7 studies taking a look at this by Chu and all, like I said, published in Lancet and British Medical Journal, also referenced as well as far as the distancing measures and whatnot, from social distancing to lockdowns and everything in between. Really looked at, from 3 foot distance keeping from people, 5 times less risk of getting, incidence of getting COVID, and then double for every extra meter that's out there. So does it matter? Sure. Sounds like it was a helpful thing when you look at the larger reviews. And I try to pick ones, meta-analyses and systematic reviews that are just stronger and they pull together great studies. I try to pare it down just to that. So on the other side of things, though, when we take a step back further a little bit, we look at the Johns Hopkins review, the situation from 2022, and so if this is a few years out, so we had a little more time to look at it. Literature review and analysis, meta-analysis, again, on effective lockdowns. 24 studies looked at basically the distancing and even locking down, decreased mortality by 0.2%, and stay in place 2 to 3%. So really little to no effect on mortality with the lockdowns. About the same when we look at the big picture of things. And as far as mortality, I think that's the distinction between the first couple of studies, like I mentioned, versus the one that I'm talking about here. One is incidence rate, and then the second one here is more about mortality rate. What we did find, though, from the academic study, though, is high economic costs, high social costs. 60% of businesses permanently were closed. We only had a 2% drop in mortality. It's non-significant, really. High mental health costs. From Journal of Affective Disorders from 2021, 29% higher mental health rates of anxiety, depression, sleep disorders, and PTSD from that time period. Once again, another systematic review, meta-analysis. So big picture, it looks like we cause greater harm than good. We close businesses, 60% of them close. Lots of mental health stuff for kids. They're still suffering from that these days. Not to mention just the loss of learning during that time as well. I think was pretty detrimental. Committee on Oversight, a governmental committee on oversight, which is a combined bipartisan group, just came out in December last year, just saying the ineffectiveness, essentially, in summary, of the physical distancing amongst a lot of other measures. So does it help? Sure. Yeah. I mean, being further apart matters. Did it really decrease mortality and affect, things to the degree where it was worth doing? No. I think we look at the broad swath of the evidence out there, and we look at I think the media didn't provide a broad scope on this either, and we just didn't hear about that. I think leadership didn't really look at the bigger picture on things too. I think we were very myopic on this and just looking at this very narrow approach on it. So hopefully we can learn from this and moving forward, not implement things like that or do it in a better way, which I'm hopefully going to lay out. So, what could we have done? I think something that we could have done as far as doing this whole thing better, I think if we looked at it in a bigger picture, I think we could have protected the most vulnerable, the people who are maybe who are older, lots of health problems, nursing homes. Take care, protect those people. And then maybe people who are immune compromised and really had lots of higher risks, like with other health problems. That group of people, I think, worth protecting. They're the most vulnerable. The death rate in COVID was, in the big picture of things, extremely low when we took it into consideration. Once again, didn't get a broad swath of this from the media. We got front page articles and pictures of people dying, and it was presented. We have COVID counters, if you remember, from some CNN. Just a lot was done. I'll put it in the clickbait category to try to draw people in. And maybe our leaders were affected by that too. Anyhow, I think not worthy of that. A low percentage of people who actually died, they were in a very select category. And I think the rest of us should have gone on living our lives. I think the costs to the rest of us were just way too high for kids and businesses and just day-to-day life and the quality and the value in connecting. So anyhow, what could we have done? Yeah, kids staying in school, businesses staying open, colleges certainly staying open, and athletes and stuff who are our best and strongest, physically in our country should have kept on playing and doing their thing. And if you get sick, like anything else, okay, then you can go stay home. But you're going to recover most likely because you're fit and you're young. So I think the third thing to think about is what other positive things could we have done instead of trying to distance or separate people or masks, which I showed in a previous video to be largely ineffective. A lot of positive measures. There were lots of natural stuff that was being brought out there at the time, like an ivermectin and other homeopathic and natural things, which were shunned. They had studies, but obviously not huge studies. Well, neither did the COVID. Those weren't great studies either. So when the COVID vaccine came out, so we should have leaned into the natural things. Anything we could have done to empower ourselves, I think, is one thing we could have done and should have done. Instead of just waiting for some magical vaccine, which really wasn't certainly long-term an effective route either. Number two, we should have leaned into natural immunity and really said, hey, for people who are healthy, let's get it. Let's get immunity. Let's lean into this. Look at it as like lifting weights and let's be stronger by it. Number three, look at our foods. Let's eat organic. Let's eat vegetables. Let's eat things that are clean and not processed, which lowers our inflammation. All the processed foods and things that are full of dyes and whatnot create inflammation. Let's create less stress on our immune system. That's a third thing we could have done. Fourth, let's encourage supporting each other and just that getting together, that it just lowers stress by us connecting. Number five, exercise really lowers stress as well, lowers cortisol, strengthens our immune system, improves our resistance to infections. Encourage people to get out there and exercise and do that too. And there's ways of lowering stress. Maybe it's through faith and reading the Bible or getting together in groups. I think these are some things we could do and could have done. I think it'd be great if we would have really focused on these as opposed to things that kept us apart. and things that really just didn't work in the grand scheme of things, or certainly weren't super effective. So, yeah, I propose leaning into those kind of things in the future, and hopefully we can learn from what happened here in COVID and choose some better measures, some positive measures, and be encouraging towards those kinds of things. So, anyhow, that's a look today at the social distancing, and taking a broader look at that, and just seeing the fact that it wasn't terribly effective, if at all, and probably created more problems than it helped. In the future, I think there's some better things we can lean on to help us and to take better care of ourselves. And in the grand scheme of things, America, we're 4% of the world's population, and we had 25% of the COVID stuff. So I'd say we're definitely in one of the first in line for taking a look at what we could do better. So hopefully this is the first step in that. So anyhow, hope you all enjoyed this. I'll put the references to some of the studies below, and have a good rest of your day. Thanks.